The evening sky shimmered above the luxurious mansion, its reflection dancing on the turquoise water of the grand pool. Laughter and the clinking of champagne glasses echoed through the courtyard, where elegantly dressed guests gathered for the Billionaire's summer gala. Among them stood Elena, a graceful woman in her early 30s, visibly pregnant, wearing a soft white gown that shimmered under the fairy lights. She was the devoted wife of Richard Langford, a billionaire known for his empire and charm. Despite her glowing smile, there was tension in her eyes, because just across the patio stood Vanessa, Richard's former mistress, stunning in a red silk dress and smirking with the satisfaction of someone who still believed she had power. Elena's heart pounded as she watched Richard laugh with guests, trying to ignore the whispers around her. Vanessa had made her presence impossible to overlook. She flirted openly, her laughter sharp and cutting. Elena had endured humiliation for months, forgiving Richard's mistakes for the sake of their unborn child. But tonight, as she stood alone near the edge of the pool, she felt Vanessa's gaze burning through her. "Beautiful night, isn't it?" Vanessa's voice dripped with false sweetness as she approached. Elena turned, forcing a smile. "It is. Let's hope it stays peaceful." But Vanessa only tilted her head, her red lips curving in amusement. "Peaceful? With me around? Oh, darling, I wouldn't count on it." The guests' laughter faded as a subtle argument began near the poolside. Vanessa, now inches away, whispered cruelly, "You think he loves you because you're carrying his baby? You're just a phase. I'm the one he truly wanted." Elena stepped back, her hands instinctively covering her stomach. "You're wrong, Vanessa. Richard made his choice," she said, voice trembling but strong. Vanessa's expression hardened, jealousy twisted into rage. "Then why did he invite me?" She spat, grabbing Elena's wrist. Elena gasped, struggling to free herself, but the sudden movement brought her dangerously close to the pool's edge. Water rippled beneath the lights, the air thick with tension as Vanessa's voice rose. No one noticed what happened next until they heard the scream. Vanessa's push was swift, a blur of motion and shock. Elena's body hit the water with a splash that silenced the party. For a moment, everything froze. Then chaos erupted. Guests shouted. Some ran toward the pool, others froze in horror. Elena surfaced, gasping, her white gown billowing around her like a ghostly cloud. Her hands clutched her belly, fear overtaking her as contractions began. The shock had sent her into labor. "Help me!" she screamed, her voice trembling with pain and panic. The water turned frantic as she struggled to stay afloat. Richard turned at the sound, his eyes widening in disbelief as he saw his pregnant wife thrashing helplessly in the pool. Time seemed to slow. He saw Vanessa standing there, her hands trembling, guilt flashing across her face for a split second before she backed away. "What have you done?" he shouted, his voice echoing through the stunned silence. Without another thought, Richard tore off his jacket and dove into the water, the guests gasping as he disappeared beneath the shimmering surface. The water was cold, but adrenaline drowned every sensation. Richard reached Elena, pulling her up, his arm steady beneath her shoulders. "It's okay, I've got you," he whispered, trying to calm her panic. She winced in pain, gripping his hand tightly. "The baby, it's coming," she cried. The realization hit him like a thunderbolt. He yelled for someone to call an ambulance, but no one moved fast enough. As he guided her toward the pool's edge, her breathing grew faster, her body trembling. Vanessa, frozen by guilt and horror, watched helplessly as Richard lifted Elena out of the water and laid her on the poolside tiles. The paramedics hadn't arrived yet, and the guests circled in shock, whispering frantically. Elena's contractions came faster, tears mixing with water as she looked up at Richard. "I can't, please don't leave me," she whispered weakly. He took her hand, kneeling beside her. "I'm right here," he said firmly. "Just breathe, Elena, breathe for me." She screamed as another wave of pain hit. "It hurts," she cried, and Richard's heart shattered. "You're strong. You've always been strong," he said softly, brushing wet hair from her face. Around them the world faded. It was just the two of them, the husband desperate to save the woman he loved and the mother fighting to bring their child into the world. Finally, the sound of sirens pierced the night. The paramedics rushed in, quickly assessing the situation. They lifted Elena onto a stretcher, urging Richard to stay back, but he refused. I'm coming with her, he demanded, soaked and breathless. Vanessa stepped forward as if to speak, but Richard's glare stopped her cold. You've done enough, he said through clenched teeth. The guilt on her face deepened as she realized what she had truly caused. Not just a public scene, but the near destruction of an innocent life. As the ambulance pulled away, she stood alone by the water, her reflection broken by ripples of regret. Hours later, in the hospital, Richard sat beside Elena's bed, holding her hand as machines beeped softly. The doctor entered with a tired smile. Both mother and baby are safe, he announced. Relief flooded Richard's face, tears filling his eyes. When he looked down, he saw Elena smiling weakly, holding their newborn daughter wrapped in a white blanket. She's beautiful, Elena whispered. Richard nodded, touching the baby's tiny hand. So are you, he said softly. The air between them filled with unspoken forgiveness and gratitude. Love reborn through pain. The next morning, reporters flooded the headlines. Billionaire saves wife after mistress pushes her into pool. The world was shocked. But Richard didn't care about public opinion anymore. He had only one priority, his family. Vanessa vanished from his life completely, leaving behind the remnants of her jealousy. As sunlight streamed into the hospital room, Elena cradled their baby, smiling at Richard. She's our second chance, she said. He kissed her forehead, whispering, No, she's our miracle. Outside, the day began anew, bright, calm, and full of life, just like the love that had survived the storm. Days later, the once bustling mansion stood unusually quiet. The glittering pool where the chaos had unfolded was now calm, reflecting the soft glow of dawn. Richard walked slowly across the patio, the weight of everything that had happened still heavy on his shoulders. The scent of chlorine mixed with memories he wished he could erase. Elena's terrified scream, the ripples of panic, the helplessness in his chest as he dove into the water. He stopped by the edge, staring at his own reflection. His eyes were tired, but they carried something new. Determination. Behind him, the soft sound of footsteps made him turn. Elena, now in a loose white dress, walked toward him, her face pale but peaceful. In her arms, their newborn daughter slept soundly, wrapped in a pale pink blanket. She's going to grow up knowing her father saved her life, Elena said softly. Richard looked at her, emotion swelling in his chest. No, he said, his voice low and full of warmth. She'll grow up knowing her mother never gave up, even when everything tried to break her. The moment lingered between them, silent but powerful. The air was still, yet heavy with healing. A love tested and proven stronger than betrayal, stronger than fear. And as they stood by the pool that had once symbolized pain, it now shimmered like glass under the sunrise, a reflection not of tragedy, but of survival. That morning, Richard held a private meeting with his lawyers and security team in his study. The atmosphere was tense, the scent of coffee mingling with quiet anger. I want every record of Vanessa's involvement handed to the authorities, Richard said firmly, his tone leaving no room for argument. No one lays a hand on my family and walks away untouched. His assistant nodded, sliding a folder across the desk, photos, witness statements, and footage from the security cameras. The video showed everything, the confrontation, the push, the horror that followed. Richard's jaw tightened as he watched, then closed the folder. Send it, he said coldly. When the team left, he leaned back in his chair, exhaling heavily. The rage that had consumed him the night of the accident was now replaced with clarity. He realized that protecting Elena and their daughter wasn't just about revenge. It was about rebuilding trust, repairing what jealousy had almost destroyed. Later that evening, he found Elena sitting by the window of their bedroom, the baby sleeping in her arms, bathed in golden sunset light. She looked peaceful yet distant. I saw the news, she whispered. About Vanessa being arrested. Richard knelt beside her, gently resting his hand on hers. She can't hurt us anymore, he said. Elena met his gaze, her eyes tired but full of love. Maybe now we can finally start over. He nodded slowly. We already have. The words felt like a promise, fragile but real, carried on the quiet hum of the setting sun.